Hi everyone! I figured I'd make a fun model horse video today of all my favorite Breyer model horse colors, meaning I'm going to go through the basic horse colors like bay, chestnut, etc. And pick out the models in my personal collection of those colors that really caught my eye. I do have a lot of models that are beautiful and have awesome shading and everything, but these are a few that are pretty vibrant and they stand out. So I will show you those. All right, so the first category I'll do is bay. And one of my favorite models that is a bay in my collection is Laredo. He's not a popular mold or particular model because he is a little bit different. But this guy, his shading is so cool. I'm going to try to capture it in the natural light from the window, but he's got some awesome shading and he's like a beautiful bay. Like super, super, super pretty. He's got dapples. Don't mind any dust because these guys don't usually move when they're not in show season. So I'll try to, but you can see he's got really cool shading. It's very realistic. And he's just a nice, almost like medium to dark bay. But he's very cool. So he is one bay that comes to mind, and when he's in really bright light, he's like real pretty. He looks a little dark here, but he's actually a little lighter in person. And then another bay that comes to mind is Flash, which I love how the bays have like that lighter coloring on their muzzles, and he's got that definitely, and you can see like the lighter shading through his body and the dapples. So I really like that color on him. And there's so many different types of bays, like blood bays, dark bays, light bays, wild bays. There's so many types. So these were just a couple that were kind of like more medium to dark bays. I tend to love dark bays in general. And then I'll try to get the real color. There you go. Now you can see the color of him. But I love the shading on this guy. Very, very pretty. Okay, so the next color I'll do is Chestnut. Now, these guys are pretty dusty. This guy is affirmed, but he's the glossy version, and there was only 500 made of him. And this guy is a very red, almost like fiery chestnut, but I think he's really cool looking. He's got lots of shading, wicked glossy. So I really like this guy. I actually have a soft spot for the cigar mold. And because I grew up playing with like my cigar mold when I was a kid, and so he's really cool. Like if you look at him, he's really pretty, and I know he's a long model and everything, but this guy's shading's really cool. He's like a fiery red chestnut. And then we have like a very like normal like chestnut color, which is like the red chestnut, but it's not nearly as red as the affirmed, and it's just very pretty with gorgeous shading. And this is Brunello. He's a newer model, and this is the braided version, but this guy has awesome shading, just for a very like normal chestnut color. And so he's real pretty. And there's so many different types of chestnuts, just like bays. And then here's a kind of like a liver chestnut color, and this is a stablemate. And I can't quite remember if this was from a set or anything, but I love this little one because the shading's really cool on this model. And I love the color too. I love like that kind of like livery chestnut with the flaxen mane and tail. He's almost like a silver bay color. So he's very on the edge of being like a silver bay. Which is what he might actually be, because he's got kind of darker markings down by his legs. But yeah, I'm trying to get it to focus. But he's a really cool color. I love his markings too. All right, so speaking of silver bays, I have Uncalled For here. So Uncalled For is a very cool silver bay color. Has like almost a white creamy mane and tail. And mine's not too metallic-y. You can see a little bit of a sheen like underneath her. She's really cool. All right, so we'll move on to gray. And I have a couple different grays here. So I have a dapple gray Peruvian Paso here, and he's got the resist dapple technique, which I personally love. It's very kind of like old school. A lot of the vintage models tend to have this, but one thing I like about it is it's like they're not fish scale dapples. So, but I really like this guy. He's really cool. He's got neat shading. So he's more of like a dapple medium gray. And then we'll move on to Limerick, who is a very deep, dark, dappled gray. And I love this guy. I'm trying to get like all his dapples and everything in the light so you guys can see. He's got so much to him. I really, really love this guy. And I love the Cleveland Bay mold on top of that. So, but he's very cool and very glossy. And then we'll move on to the black model. So this guy, he's very dusty. He needs to be like dusted off. But he is a very cool black. I've seen some with like some really neat shading to them too. Mine's a little bit flatter in color, but he's got beautiful eyes and everything too. So I really, really like this guy. Please excuse the dust. All right, so we'll move on to Appaloosas. I do have a couple really cool Appaloosa patterned horses, but these are two that definitely stand out in my collection. We'll do Chicory first. And he's kind of like a varnish roan blanket Appaloosa. And this guy, he's got really cool shading. I love his spots. They're very crisp and very realistic for like how an actual blanketed Appaloosa would look. So this guy is really, really cool. So I really like him. So we'll go on to Sprinkles. Now Sprinkles, I really like her. She's kind of like a bay roan. She's almost like a blanketed Appaloosa that is almost leopard because she's got like patches up on near her face and everything. So she's really, really cool. It took me a while to actually get this girl when I was at that Breyer Fest because she kept selling out every round I went through. So then someone had an extra ticket and they gave it to me because I helped them out with another horse, and I ended up getting her. So I'm pumped I actually got her. I love her a lot, and her color is just so cool. So many different spots, shading and everything. I'm trying to capture it all in the light for you, but she's really, really pretty. One of my favorite Breyer roans in my collection is this beautiful Wixom model. This was, she didn't really have a release name. It was just a mid-states dealer. It was called a Brabant Cross. So they just kind of gave her a breed. She never was assigned like an actual name. This girl is gorgeous. She does have kind of like a shimmery tone to her, but I love the shading on her face. They did a great job with her. And she's really nicely done and very pretty, gorgeous eyes, but her color definitely stands out. And very nice looking model. So my next color will be Grulla, and this guy is Arthur. He was a Breyerfest special run. This guy, he's a really neat color. I know this mold is a little bit older and we call him the Bubble Butt Belgian, but he looks really cool in this color. Very glossy, cool markings, but this Grulla color is really well done on him. And you can see all the shading. Don't mind the dust, but he's got the dorsal stripe. But he's very cool, so he got pulled out for the Grulla coloring. So a model that stands out for the Pinto coloring category would be my Autumn Shimmer. And I do have a soft spot for the Wixom mold. I know she's huge. I know she's tippy, but something about her I just love. I'm a big drafter fan too. But if you look at this mold, don't mind the smudges and the dust, but look at that shading. She's got such pretty shading, like all through her face and everything too. I know it's hard to see with the gloss, but she definitely stands out. And I like her like minimal Pinto markings too. Like she's very pretty. So I have a lot of really cool Pintos in my collection, but she's definitely one that I really like her base color and her pinto markings. All right, so what we'll do now is the buckskin / dun category. So we have this really cool Zippo, which was like the picture perfect quarter horse. And he didn't really have a specific name, but he came with like a little camera, and it was to like kind of promote like taking pictures of your models or something like that. So this guy is really cool. He's almost like a brownish like dun, if that makes any sense, because he's almost got like brown points on his legs and his face. So he's kind of like that chocolate kind of dun look to him, but he's very cool, very pretty. You don't see him around too much, but look at that shading on his face, really pretty. So he's really well done, especially with like his leg bars and stuff. Nothing looks funky, and he's got his dorsal stripe. So he's a dun. And then this guy, he would be more like a red dun, but he has no dorsal stripe. So I don't know if he's some type of like buck skinny type chestnut thing. So he's just going to go in this category because he would be more like a red dun if he had that reddish dorsal stripe. But this was the 2016 Christmas horse, I'm pretty sure. I forget the name of this one, the actual release name. But this is on the Lonesome Glory mold. Very, very pretty. I really like the color. It's very shimmery. And it has like brown points, brown mane and tail. But super cool shading on this guy. Like, he just kind of stands out. And this is what he looks like underneath the tack if no one takes their tack off their Christmas horses. And then we have Buttercream. So once again, very dusty and dirty. So Buttercream is a buckskin, no dorsal stripe or anything, but he's a very pale buckskin. So this guy's kind of cool. He's got the shading through his mane and his tail. He was a Breyerfest special run quite a few years back. I can't quite remember when, but he's really neat, but he's very pale, and he almost has like grayish shading in his mane. So he's cool. He's almost got that frosty look to his mane and tail. Two models I actually have are going to be under the Palomino category. I have Southern Sunrise, and this was a model that I got when I was like a kid. So I really like this model. It does have like a metallic-y sheen to him, and he's very well done. But I'll try to get like the shading. And this is like the original one. This wasn't the warehouse re-release that they did, I think last year or 2 years ago. So this was the one that came out originally. But very cool shading on the face, but I love that metallic-y kind of Palomino look to him. So this is on the Missouri Foxtrotter mold. And then we'll move over to our newer model named Griffin. And this was released this year. And he's a very kind of like dark Palomino, or he could even go for like almost a flaxen chestnut or a sorrel. So, but I'm going to just put him in the Palomino category because he's got a very light mane and tail. He's darker than Southern Sunrise. But this guy, his shading is really cool on him. And he's got the dapples, but they're subtle, so they're not like fish scales over his whole body, but you can just see like all that shading he has, and he's really well painted. Like, very nice model. I'm extremely happy with him. I love the shading on him, and I do love the Cleveland Bay mold a lot. So this is the last model that I chose for my favorite Breyer horse colors. I do have a lot more models in my collection, but these are the ones that I kind of just snagged that kind of popped out when I was looking at different colors. I could include a lot more horses, but this video would be a million hours long. I hope you guys liked this video, and it was just something fun for a change, and these are just my favorite Breyer horse colors.